What's up, everybody? Welcome to another edition of Mile High Hockey, a Friday edition. You made it. It is the weekend. We are brought to you by Mountain High Appliance. Appreciate them sponsoring the Mile High Hockey podcast 5 days a week during the Avalanche's playoff run. And Drew, that playoff run is at a crossroads. Big game tomorrow night in Ball Arena, because if the Avalanche win, we're feeling all right. If they lose, we're worried this season may come to an end way sooner than anyone wanted.
Yeah, we talked about a must-win game for Dallas in Game 2, knowing that they were going to have to go back to Denver down 0-2 if they didn't end up coming away with that game. And now the Avalanche are in the same position because you lose this game on Saturday night, you go back to Dallas 3-1. This thing's probably a wrap. But I think with the extra day of rest and with some certain adjustments from Jared Bednar, I feel confident this team can come out tomorrow night and put together a much better performance than what we saw in Game 3. Because let's put it this way. If we see what we saw in Game 3, the Avs are going to be down 3-1 in this series.
Yeah, no, Game 3 was tough to watch. The Gabe Landeskog thing was awesome, and then they got outshot 13-5 in the first period. Wasn't as big of an emotional boost as I had hoped for. In terms of practice today, though, there was some adjustments. Gabriel Landeskog is now on the top power play, which I'm a fan of. I advocated for him and Nichushkin to go to PP1. Right now, it's just Gabe, and Gabe's also been moved up to the second line, it appears, with Jonathan Drouin heading down to the third line. Listen, in one hand, it's like, it's Gabe. This is great. He's a cup champion. It's awesome. On another hand, it's a little concerning that Jared Bednar is like, oh, Gabe was one of our best forwards. Well, one of your best forwards is a guy who hasn't played hockey in 1,032 days until the other night. So I love the fact that they're just throwing Gabe in, but also, Drew, it's like, man, we thought depth was the strength of this team. And all of a sudden, based on these changes, they're going to be asking Landeskog to do a lot as quickly as tomorrow night.
Well, it's also a question for me is like, what the heck took so long? Because you could see in Game 3 that the power play wasn't working. You had 6 opportunities and you managed to get 7 shots on goal. That's almost impossible to do. And with as bad as Jonathan Drouin looked in Game 2 and Game 3, I don't understand what the heck took so long for Jared Bednar to be like, you know what, maybe we ought to make a move, because it was pretty clear watching that hockey game that Gabe Landeskog was one of the best forwards, if not maybe the best forward on the ice for the Avalanche, which, like you said, it's kind of telling in a way. Like, great for Gabe.
It's kind of hard to wrap your mind around if we're just being honest.
Yeah. But, I mean, it's great to see that Gabe was able to come back and be as good as he was in that, which, by the way, shocked me, because from what I saw on that Friday night game in the AHL with the Eagles, I said, there's no way this guy's ready to come in and be in a Stanley Cup playoff game and be the same, even remotely close to type of Gabe that he was, before the injury. But he proved me wrong. I thought he looked fantastic the other night against Dallas. And it's just another thing was just like, okay, make these changes and see what happens and go from there. But I don't like the fact that it took Jared Bednar so long. And I'll ask another question too. Why didn't he play in Game 2? Because it's pretty clear that he was ready to go.
Yep.
I think that was the question we all had going in. It's like, all right.
Heck, why didn't he play in Game 1? We could take it that far at this point.
Yeah. I mean, they didn't need it, but it's like, all right, if you're going to make an adjustment and you go through all the shenanigans that you did in Game 2 before the game with, going through the warm up and then being on the score sheet, and then, oh no, suddenly he's a scratch. It's just like, why didn't he play in Game 2? That's one of the things that really kind of irritated me about this. And I love Jared Bednar as a coach. I think he's a top 2 or 3 coach in the NHL, but so far, I think in this series, based on that decision and based on some of the moves he made with the power play, like dropping Val Nichushkin down to the second power play in the game the other night, what are we doing? You're a better coach than that, Jared Bednar. I know you are. I just don't like some of the decisions that he's made. And I think you can honestly say that once again, for the second straight year, Pete DeBoer is out coaching Jared Bednar, which is kind of a shocking thing for somebody who's such a big fan to say.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. Pete DeBoer right now is running circles around Jared Bednar. And let's be honest, the stars are in the Avalanche's head. I mean, this is 4 games in a row, playoff games. They have won at Ball Arena. I've been at all 4 of them, and all 4 of them have had that same vibe. Game 3, last year, they just outplayed them. Game 4, the Nichushkin bomb got dropped on us an hour before the game. Game 6, Matt Duchene wins it in double OT. And then Game 3 the other night, the Avs have 3:20 of a power play, can't score. And you're like, well, Dallas is going to win this game. What happened? They won the game 2 minutes later. Drew, I think, Avalanche fans don't want to hear it. It's a little uncomfortable. But I think the stars are in the Avs' heads right now. And if you don't reverse that trend on Saturday night, you're done. 1-2-3 Cancun, much like the Nuggets. I can't sit here in good faith and predict the Avs to win tomorrow night. I think you have a little different take than that.
I do. Yeah. Now, I don't think there's any question. I think right now, I think Dallas is in Colorado's head because it seemed like no matter what Colorado has done in this series so far, they just can't get that kind of multi-goal lead to kind of stretch things out. Because even going up 1-0 kind of, when that first period the other night, you're like, all right, just get the second goal and you're going to be fine. Then you get to the second period, it's still 1-0. You get to the third period, still 1-0. You're like, okay, you're letting Dallas hang around on this thing, even though I think Dallas was the much better team the other night. But it's like you got to get that second goal to make Dallas work for it a little bit more. And Dallas has figured Colorado out. They know what they're doing, especially like you look on the power play. They're just overloading the side that Nathan McKinnon comes on. He likes to do that little like slingshot maneuver coming through the neutral zone. They've basically clogged up the neutral zone, both at even strength and on the power play, to make things incredibly difficult for Colorado. And you can tell the frustration is starting to seep in with Nathan McKinnon, with Cale Makar, guys like that. They don't quite know what to do to get around Dallas, because it's not like this is just something that has happened overnight. This is something we saw last year in the series as well. And so I still believe in my head that despite the results, despite the Avs being down 2-1, I still think they're the better team. But at some point, you've got to play like it. You got to have your stars step up. You need more from Nathan McKinnon, who I thought was really bad in game 3. I know he had I think like 8 shot attempts, something like that. But I thought Nathan McKinnon was really bad. How often do we say that about Nate? Once,
very rarely,
once maybe twice a season.
Rarely, yes.
I mean, it almost never happens. Cale Makar's been a ghost offensively in this series. Martin Netchis, I mean, he showed some flashes early on in the game the other night, but I still didn't think he was great. Brock Nelson, I liked his game defensively. He's still done nothing offensively other than draw the penalty that got the 4-minute power play the other night. But I still do believe that the Avalanche are the better team. And I do think that we're going to see some better adjustments. We're going to see better play Saturday night in game 4. Hopefully I'm not wrong on this one, but I do think the Avalanche find a way to get this done and send this thing back to Dallas, because this is actually, the series has kind of played out a lot of the ways I thought it would. I thought all along that they would split in Dallas. They would end up splitting in Denver, and the Avs would go into Dallas and steal game 5 and come back to Denver, win game 6. I still think we're on track for that, but we're going to have to wait and see.
Oh, I love it. Hoping the Avs win 3 in a row. And the other issue that's a shame here is Mackenzie Blackwood's playing really good, good goalie. And he's the best goalie the Avalanche have had since fill in the blank. I mean, I don't know. It's been years and years and years since they've had a goalie that is this good. And you get through this series, Drew. You get through this series, you can legitimately win the Stanley Cup. It's a shame that they didn't get a laugher in round 1. You know, they got a laugher in 2022 against Nashville. Heck, Seattle could have been a laugher if the whole Nichushkin thing didn't happen the first time. The way the NHL playoffs are formatted, though, I was sitting 3 seats away from Pierre LeBrun the other night in the Ball Arena press box. Pierre's arguably the top NHL insider, and he tweeted, "This feels not like a Western Conference final game, like a Stanley Cup final game." And I think if you're the Avs, you just have to remind yourself, okay, we didn't get a laugher, but if we get through this, we can take a deep breath and we can play until the middle of June rather than having our series end or our season end in very late April or early May. I know that's tough to kind of wrap your mind around, and there's definitely a little woe is me. I can't believe we got the Stars in round 1, but man, they're unlike their basketball counterparts. It feels like there is still hope for this team to win a championship.
There is, and you mentioned, I think, one of the biggest reasons why, because Mackenzie Blackwood has not only been the better goalie in the series, he's been the best goaltender in the Stanley Cup playoffs. He still leads the league in saves.
Yet you're down 2-1.
And you're down 2-1.
Right. And you've only trailed for 62 seconds in regulation.
That number is wild to be.
Yes.
It's wild, but it's also telling about just how this series has gone so far. But Mackenzie Blackwood deserves better, because the Avs have actually answered maybe the biggest question going into this playoffs. Like, what are you going to get from a goaltender that's never been in the Stanley Cup playoffs before? And he's shown, guess what? He's been spectacular.
The moment has not been too big for him
even close.
At all. No.
In fact, he kept him in the game the other night, game 3. Because honestly, that game had no business being 1-0 the way they played in that one.
No.
So you got to play better. You got to get to the net. You got to score on the power play, take advantage of your opportunities, and you've got to be better for Mackenzie Blackwood, because that dude has been fantastic in this series.
He really has. And the Avalanche need more from their forwards, from their star players, from guys like Cale Makar. You mentioned Nathan McKinnon, Gabriel Landeskog, again, getting a heap of responsibility put on his shoulders. We'll see how it all shakes out tomorrow night. And then Drew and I will be back on Monday previewing game 5, hopefully in a 2-2 series. Fingers crossed the Avs aren't down 3-1. We will see you next time on Mile High Hockey. And thanks again to Mountain High Appliance.